Always treat your TAC crossbow as you would any weapon or firearm. It is a powerful weapon that can be deadly if mishandled. Always keep your crossbow pointed in a safe direction. Never point your crossbow at anything you don't intend to shoot. Never enter a vehicle or a building with a loaded crossbow. Always uncock and properly stow your crossbow for transporting. Always check your crossbow to make sure that it's in proper mechanical working order. Check for damaged, worn, loose, or missing parts. Never dry fire your crossbow. Firing the crossbow without an arrow will cause damage, not only to the crossbow, but possible bodily injury to you and anyone in the area. It also voids the warranty. Do not make changes or alterations to any parts of this crossbow, as it may cause an unsafe condition and will void the warranty. Never release the safety on your crossbow until you are ready to shoot and are sure of your target. Never shoot any arrow or other projectile from your crossbow that has not been recommended by PSE. Use only arrows of the proper size, weight, and length. Always keep your fingers and thumb out of the path of the string and cables while shooting your crossbow. Failure to do so will cause injury. Always wear safety glasses when handling a crossbow. Please note that the TAC Elite and TAC Ordnance crossbows are not field serviceable and must be serviced at a PSE TAC authorized dealer using a PSE TAC approved bow press. Warning: use extreme caution while operating this weapon. Never walk, run, crawl, ride a horse, operate an ATV, motorcycle, or travel in a vehicle with a loaded or cocked crossbow. Accidental discharge could prove harmful or fatal. TAC Elite Crossbow Assembly. Upon receiving your TAC Elite, you will need to attach the prod to the barrel assembly. Remove the T30 Torx bolts from the barrel. Remove the sticker from the prod. Place the prod onto the end of the barrel using the alignment pins to ensure proper fit. Firmly tighten the two T30 bolts by hand until the prod is firmly seated to the barrel. Make sure the bottom of the prod sits flush with the barrel. After assembling the TAC Elite, perform a safety inspection before cocking and loading. TAC Ordnance Assembly. Upon receiving your TAC Ordnance, you will need to attach the prod to the barrel assembly. Remove the T30 Torx bolts from the barrel. Remove the sticker from the prod. Place the prod onto the end of the barrel using the alignment pins to ensure proper fit. Hand tighten the two T30 bolts until the prod is firmly seated to the barrel. Make sure the bottom of the prod sits flush with the barrel. After assembling the TAC Ordnance, you will now need to prepare your AR-15 lower receiver for installation. With the lower receiver detached, the hammer of the AR-15 must be in the cocked position before installing the crossbow barrel. To cock the hammer, you must set the safety lever in the fire position, then push back on the hammer until it clicks. After the hammer is cocked, place the safety lever in the safe position. Fit the AR-15 lower receiver onto the front pinhole of the crossbow barrel and secure the pin. Rotate the AR-15 into the rear pinhole of the crossbow barrel and secure the rear pin. After the lower receiver is secured to the TAC Ordnance, switch the safety lever to fire and pull the trigger. This will relieve the hammer and prepare the ordnance for cocking and loading. After assembling the TAC Ordnance, perform a safety inspection before continuing. Cocking and loading. With the crank handle off, push the ratchet release lever down and pull the release assembly toward the string until the draw position pin contacts the string stoppers. Place the string loop on the release hook, taking special care not to put the loop on the anti-dry fire device. Nock a PSE TAC crossbow arrow. making sure that the nock is completely seated on the bowstring. Attach the crank to the 1/4-inch square drive on the right-hand side of the crossbow. Important: the arrow must be nocked before cranking the crossbow. With the arrow nocked, turn the crank and bring the release assembly to full draw. Make sure to keep a firm grip on the crank as you are turning it. The draw mechanism will stop when it reaches the end of its travel. The draw position pin must be seated in the barrel notches when full draw is reached. There should not be a gap between the draw position pin and the notch. The draw position pin should be in contact with the notch. To ensure there is not a gap and increase accuracy, make sure the draw position pin is seated in the notches of the barrel. Grasp the crank handle and add tension to the draw cord. With the draw pin still seated in the barrel notch, press the ratchet release lever on the left side of the tack barrel. Turn the crank handle a 1/4 turn backwards, ensuring the draw position pins are properly seated in the notches and the draw cord is relieved of tension. Continue to firmly hold the crank. Let the ratchet release lever go. Then release the crank. Remove from the crossbow and keep the crank handle in a convenient place. With the crossbow loaded, make sure to switch the safety lever to the safe position until you are ready to fire. Caution: do not overcrank. Always point the crossbow in a safe direction. The crossbow is now loaded and ready to shoot. Make sure the safety is in the safe position until you are ready to shoot. Before shooting, refer to the shooting tips video on this DVD. Letting down the crossbow. Caution: when the tack is at full draw, the components are under an extreme amount of pressure. Take special care and extreme caution when letting down the crossbow. Rest the tack on a bench or table and make sure it is pointed in a safe direction. To let the crossbow down without shooting, place the safety lever in the safe position. With the crank firmly seated onto the 1/4-inch square drive and your right hand on the knob of the crank, apply a slight pressure in the draw direction. While still applying slight pressure with the crank, use the other hand to push down on the ratchet release lever with your thumb and lift up on the draw position pin with your index finger. While continuing to hold the ratchet release lever down, slowly turn the crank in the let down direction until the string is resting on the string stoppers. When starting the let down process with the bow at full draw, you may hear a loud click. This is the cocking bar in the release pivoting back over the hammer and is normal. Make sure that the crank is fully engaged and that you hold it firmly during the letdown process. To stop at any point during the letdown, release the ratchet release lever. Do not let go of the handle while the ratchet release lever is pressed, or the crank will spin free, causing damage to the bow and potential harm to the operator. Safety inspection. Before using the PSE TAC crossbow, inspect the nocking loop for wear. If there is any visible wear or fraying to the loop before shooting the crossbow, have your PSE crossbow dealer or the PSE factory replace it. When the loop shows wear, the string cables and draw cord are also worn and must be replaced. Warning: loop material is specially engineered. Do not replace with standard loop material. Inspect the bowstring and cables, paying close attention to where the bowstring contacts the cams. If there is any sign of wear or fraying, have it replaced by a PSE TAC crossbow dealer or the PSE factory. PSE recommends having an authorized dealer check the strings and cables annually and changing the strings and cables every 800 shots. Before cocking the tack, make sure the crank handle is clean and dry. Always inspect your PSE TAC arrows after every shot. Look for damaged nocks, loose nocks, cracked, dented, or otherwise damaged arrow shafts, lost or damaged points or inserts, and ripped or missing fletchings. Do not shoot any arrows that may be damaged. Make sure to inspect all pins and screws to ensure they are in the correct position. Screws and pins will fit flush and never protrude. If there are any pins or screws that are not sitting flush or appear not to be fully seated, take your crossbow to an authorized PSE TAC dealer. After use in high humidity or damp conditions, always wipe steel components of the crossbow with a light oil. Always store the tack in a cool, dry place. High temperatures, such as those that can occur in the interior of a vehicle, can cause serious damage to your crossbow. Crossbows should always be stored in an uncocked, unloaded condition. Mounting the scope. For consistent accuracy, you want to make sure your scope is properly mounted and level with your tack. When mounting your scope, make sure the alignment pins are properly seated in the rail. Then, tighten the mount, making sure it is secure to the rail. After properly mounting the scope to the rail, place a level across the top of the scope, and then reference the tack mounted level. These two levels should match. If they do not match, make sure the scope is properly seated on the rail. If it is, then the scope needs to be rotated. To rotate, loosen the scope mounting rings and turn the scope until level. Once level, tighten the mount using a crossing pattern so that torque does not pull the scope out of alignment. After tightening, double check that the scope is level.
Bobby Vargas with PSE here, and next we're going to go over proper shooting techniques for your TAC crossbows. With these couple of tips, we're going to make sure that you're shooting your TAC crossbows as consistently and as accurately as possible. But before you do anything, make sure you start with some safety glasses. Always inspect your TAC arrows after each and every shot to make sure that they're in proper working order. Make sure that your tips are tight. Always inspect the entire shaft after each shot to make sure that there's no damage or splintering to the shaft. Inspect each of your vanes to make sure that they're all intact and they're still properly glued to the shaft. And very importantly, make sure that the nock has no cracks or splits to it. Remember, never shoot any other arrow out of your TAC crossbow other than the TAC crossbow arrows that come with it. This is the only approved arrow allowed to shoot out of the TAC crossbow. When shooting, the TAC should always be rested on the cantilevered foregrip rail. Use the foregrip rail to mount your choice of grip, bipod, or tripod. Never use a barrel to rest the TAC when shooting. Use the adjustable stock to find a comfortable shooting position. Then lightly hold the butt of the stock on your shoulder. This allows recoil while the arrow is still in the crossbow. Consistency is the key. Use the same amount of pressure to hold it in place from shot to shot. Make sure the draw position pin is in the proper position. Please review the cocking and loading section of the DVD for proper position. When shooting, do not tilt the crossbow from side to side. Always keep the bow level. Make sure to use the bubble level mounted on the scope rail to assist you. The final part to great shooting is trigger pull. Squeeze the trigger very slowly and smoothly. Try to replicate the same motion each time you shoot. So there you have it. With these few tips, we'll make sure that you're getting the best performance out of your TAC crossbow. But always remember, safety first. Safety glasses. Keep your fingers and body parts out of the travel path of the string at all times. And check us out on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and check out more tips and tactics on all of our products.
Tuning the PSE TAC crossbow. Caution: only tune or make adjustments to the tack when the crossbow is unloaded and at rest. It is ideal when the crossbow will shoot a perfect bullet hole through paper. Shoot the tack arrow through paper, making adjustments until the desired results are achieved. If the paper shows a vertical tear, the arrow rest must be adjusted. To adjust, simply loosen the arrow rest mounting screws. Make your adjustment, then tighten the screws before shooting. If the arrow demonstrates a down tear, adjust the arrow rest by moving it up. If the arrow demonstrates an upward tear, adjust the arrow rest by moving it down. Do not attempt to adjust the arrow rest if the crossbow is cocked or if there is an arrow on the rest. In order to eliminate left or right side tears, the nock loop needs to be adjusted. To adjust the loop, place a loose arrow nock into the nocking point and rotate it around the string. If the arrow demonstrates a left tear, adjust the nocking loop by moving it to the right. To move the nocking loop to the right, rotate the loose arrow nock toward the prod of the bow. If the arrow demonstrates a right tear, adjust the nocking loop by moving it to the left. To move the nocking loop to the left, rotate the loose arrow nock toward the trigger. If rotating the loop on the string does not seem to make any difference in the direction of the tear, take the tack to an authorized PSE TAC dealer for tuning. Finally, inspect cams and cables to assure that the cables are in proper orientation to the reference marks on the cams. The cables need not be in perfect alignment with the reference marks, but they must match from cam to cam. If the reference marks are out of alignment, an authorized PSE dealer can make the adjustment. Issue: when cranking, the release stops before full draw. Possible reasons and solutions. The D-loop was placed on the anti-dry fire hook and not the release hook. Let the bow down and relocate the D-loop over the release hook. The hammer and the lower receiver may not have been cocked before mounting. Reinstall the lower receiver and make sure the hammer is cocked. Issue: when cranking, a clunk is heard, and the arrow may pop off the string. Possible reasons and solutions. The draw cord is not spooling up properly, or is initiating its spooling in the wrong direction. Look at it from the back. It should spool to the left first. Remove the lower receiver and unspool the release all the way. Start cranking it back and use your finger to start the spooling in the proper direction. Note: when pulling the release forward, only pull it far enough to attach it to the loop. This will prevent the first wrap around the spool from winding in the wrong direction. Always keep tension on the draw cord when cranking and uncranking to help spool the cord correctly and to avoid overlapping the cord. Issue: when cranking, there is a ticking noise that sounds like it's coming from the cams and/or pockets. Possible reasons and solutions. The pockets and pivots may need to be greased, especially between the pivots and the riser. A wheel bearing may be going bad. Bring the crossbow to your local PSE dealer or contact PSE customer service. Issue: when cranking, a squeaking noise is heard. Possible reasons and solutions. The gears may need to be greased. Remove the lower receiver and apply light grease or oil to the gear teeth. Contact PSE customer service if the problem still exists. Issue: the release is hard to pull forward and feels like it's sticking. Possible reasons and solutions. The shoulder bolts holding the spool gear located towards the back of the upper receiver may have broken loose. Tighten the bolts and try again. Check the draw cord for wear and fraying. If there is any wear, contact customer service or your local dealer. Issue: arrows appear to be fishtailing or vertically porpoising. Possible reasons and solutions. The PSE TAC crossbow may be out of tune. See the tuning video, or bring it to a qualified technician for tuning. Issue: broadheads don't shoot in the same spot as field points. Possible reasons and solutions. Start with making sure the bow is properly tuned. Bring it to a qualified technician. Be sure the broadhead is on straight. Check by spinning the arrow to observe any wobble. If properly tuned, the broadhead is probably the problem. Due to the high speed of the PSE TAC crossbow, not all broadheads will have the proper aerodynamics to be stable. Issue: the bow is not shooting in the advertised speed range. Possible reasons and solutions. Check the axle-to-axle length at rest. The bow should measure 17 inches to 17 1/8 inches axle-to-axle, and check the draw weight. Issue. Vanes on the arrows are wrinkled or worn. Possible reasons and solutions. Due to the high speed of the PSE TAC crossbow, the vanes will change. They may become worn and wrinkled from shooting. PSE carefully selected the best vane option available for a combination of accuracy and durability. Even if the vanes appear to be worn or wrinkled, they should continue to shoot very well, and it's not necessary to refletch until the vanes have tears, are completely ripped off, or a serious drop in accuracy has been observed. Issue. Periodically, shots will impact very low. Possible reasons and solutions. It is very important to draw to the same exact position each shot. Do not overdraw the crossbow. Stop drawing immediately when the pin drops into the full position catch. Overdrawing the crossbow will cause the arrow to impact very low, because the front of the release is raised up, which angles the arrow down. If overdrawn, crank the release all the way back and press the ratchet release down. Then let the release forward until it stops in the notch. See the cocking and loading videos. Issue. The scope will not zero at close ranges. Possible reasons and solutions. The scope rail on the upper receiver is machined at an angle to maximize the range that a scope can be zeroed at. Not all scopes will have enough internal adjustment to zero at close ranges. The vertical position of the arrow rest may need to be adjusted. Have a qualified technician tune the bow. Shooting through paper to observe arrow flight is recommended. Don't deliberately move the arrow rest to compensate for the scope's lack of adjustment if the bow is in tune. This will only cause poor arrow flight and result in a loss of accuracy. Issue. The strings and/or serving are becoming worn. Possible reasons and solutions. Strings and ropes will wear and eventually need replacement. PSE recommends replacing these every 800 shots. Applying wax or string lube will greatly increase the life of the strings. If significant wear occurs in only a few shots, debris or a burr may be the cause. Bring your crossbow to a PSE dealer or contact PSE customer service. Issue. The trigger won't actuate when pulled. Possible reasons and solutions. Due to replaceable AR-15 triggers, it is possible that the trigger pin has slipped in position. Verify that the trigger pins are fully captured on both sides of the lower receiver component, or replace as necessary.